Fire then. Only these two units and this cannon are in range. Okay, I'm just going to deal with these two units first. So they can both fire at each other, they're both skirmishers, and they both have a 2 hex range. That's this number here, just above the horn. The same on this unit here. Now this one's just slightly out of range. So they can trade fire. Okay, how do they shoot? Well, it's worked out simultaneously, and both of them it's going to be a very long odds shot. And essentially, you're going to come up with an attack number and a defense number, and they're both based on charts. So, try and keep my shadow out of the camera angle. So this is the defense table, and basically you're just going to look at what type of unit is it? It's infantry. What's its formation, and what kind of terrain is it in? Well, we're in clear, and we're in skirmish order, so we have a defense value of 14. Simple enough. So each of these units has got a defense value of 14. So that will be the defending odds. Okay, what about attack? We have what's called the fire effects table. So it's a French unit. We are Le Guerre, and we are in skirmish. If it says printed, our fire value is the printed fire value of 8. If it's got a multiple, times 3, times 4, whatever, we multiply the number of increments, the number of hits, the number of men in the unit. So 4 times 3 is 12. So 12 versus 14. Sounds quite good, alright? But because these guys have just got crappy muskets and not rifles, they halve their fire value at a 2 hex range. So it becomes 6 against 14, which are not great odds. And then basically all you do is you just roll on this chart, which looks a bit archaic, but you've got your odds across the top. 10 to 1 being brilliant, 1 to 3 being where we're at, I think. What are we? 6 against 14. I do have my magical calculator. .4, which works as an odds ratio of. So we're in this column anyway here, 1 to 2.5, which means we can score a hit on a roll of a 64, 5 or 6. The dice in this game. Tens, units. The minimum score you can roll is 11. The maximum is 66. It's a bit like, it's a base 6 system, sort of, if you know anything about maths. So decimal, the system we used, is base 10, 0 through 9, right? And you have tens, hundreds, thousands, base 10. Some mathematicians use something called base 16 for some computer-based maths. Computers themselves use base 2, binary, 0, 1. You have 2 different numbers. Here we use base 6, except it's not quite base 6 because we don't start from 0, we start from 1. So you can't actually use sort of base 6 maths that easily. So the easy way to think of it is, if I rolled 42 and I had to add, 3 points of modifier, that would go 43, 44, 45. If it was, say, a further 3 points of modifier, we go 46, 51, 52. So the way I'm thinking of it is I'll just count round. But it's D66, roughly. Just a bit weird, but I guess I'll get used to it. So anyway, I will roll. I don't think there's any modifiers for this particular roll. If they were being fired on a big stack of units, I think if I had more than 9 increments, or more than 9 sort of hit points of men in that hex, then there would be a bonus. But otherwise, I think it's just a straight roll. So, 10s, 22, which is nothing. Okay, so that is a skirmisher firing at some other skirmishers, which has done absolutely nothing. Not that unsurprisingly. I will probably roll off and do the other one, and then I'll look at this cannon. So the infantry and column have a defense value of 6. The cannon's got an attack value of 9, which puts us in the 1.5 to 1 column. Which means we need to roll a 42 if we want to hit. I don't believe there are any modifiers to this. There isn't a large stack of infantry in this hex. There's nothing that's going to bounce onto, so it's just a straight roll again, and we need 42 or 32. So again, nothing's going to happen, except I'll have to put a marker on the ammunition wagon to show that I've spent 1 round of ammunition. That thing can only hold 6 rounds, and once they're gone, they're gone. So that was actually a pretty wasted round of ammunition. Alright, it's the start of turn 2, and I've reread the command rules, and I still don't fully understand them. I don't think it's the strongest piece of the rules writing in this game, basically. So, my current understanding is this. In theory, you have a command chain, okay? So you have here, the French, who have Turpin, who is a division commander. He has to be within 6 hexes of his wing commander, who is Riel here, which he is, he's within 4, okay. So he's in command, and every unit within 3 hexes of him from his division is in command. Units which are outside of his division, so this cavalry unit over here, for instance, this cannon over here, a Dorpin cannot command those. I assume the wing commander can, but I don't think it doesn't clearly explain that in the rules. Otherwise they can't move, so I assume that he can. I know that an aide-de-camp, this is an aide-de-camp here, can stack with one of these units, and then if he's given a movement unit, it's a rather inefficient way of doing it, he can move with whatever's in the stack of him. So you can create sort of small activations like that. I get 1 maneuver unit, that's 1 activation basically, for the wing leader. Turpin, the division leader, doesn't generate 1 himself. So I certainly shouldn't have moved these guys last turn, but oh well. Because I only had a division leader on the table, Beresford, who generates 1 movement unit, and he's only just shown up. So both sides are going to get 1 maneuver unit. They're going to put 1 chit in this cup, and I can either stick that maneuver unit on an aide-de-camp who can just move the 1 unit with him, or I can stack it on the division leader who can move only units from his division, and they can only move if they're within 3 spaces of him at the start of the maneuver. Or I can stick it on the wing leader, and then I'm very unclear as to what happens. Whether the whole wing can move or not, I don't know. Whether only units in command of the wing can move. I think if he's within 6, then I can use it as a chain. I think the whole point in doing putting a maneuver unit on a division is if the division is out of command of the wing, and then the idea is a runner's run over there and given him the order, and he does the maneuver, and this guy doesn't do anything instead, or unless he's got another maneuver unit spent on him. And if I use the maneuver unit on Rail, everything within 3 of my division leader can move, and anything that my wing leader can order can also move, which I think is probably 3 within him, but I'm not entirely clear on that. That's the way I'm going to play the rules anyway, and I'm basically going to wait till I get comments or responses, or have time to trawl around forums looking, because it's not clear to me in the rules. So that's command anyway, on my current understanding of it. So I'm going to stick 1 wing command on him, and the English are going to do exactly the same. They're going to stick 1 wing command on Beresford. And when the corresponding chits for those get drawn from the cup, they'll move. So, assaulting. This unit, which is currently in column, I want it to assault this unit here. First thing, just read the rules on skirmishes, and one thing I noticed is that if you have 4 increments or more, you have to occupy 2 hexes. So I'm going to just say that this is occupying these 2 hexes. And its front is actually that wide. So these guys, if they want to melee this, they have to declare it basically, and so they declare they're going to move these 2 spaces and assault this unit here. They then have to roll, basically to make a morale check to see if they're going to do it. And a morale check, their morale is 22, so I have to roll 2 dice and exceed 22. And the modifier for that is the range. The closer I am, the less inclined the men are to engage in melee. So if I was adjacent, it would be 18. I am 2 hexes away, so it's -6 to this roll. So I've got to get above 18, and I'm going to -6 in the roll. So 10s, 4, 6. So that becomes, well, that drops all the way down to a 1, then back up to a 6. So it becomes 36, which is enough to pass. So then these guys move 1, 2. They suffer fire, and they're going to suffer opportunity fire because they spent a movement point entering that hex. But they get this assault marker on them. And when it gets to the assault phase, they will be allowed to attack. Only units with an assault marker on them can attack. Because these units are in skirmish, when we get to the assault phase, they'll have the opportunity to retreat before combat if they want to. And then they'll roll. If they don't retreat, they choose to stand. They'll roll to see if they stand. If they successfully stand, both units basically just shoot at each other. If they fail to stand, these guys disorder, and there's actually a big fight. There's melee. So that's charging. Okay, it's the melee phase of the second turn. I'll just talk through a few of the things which have happened since I last got the camera out. I did consider firing this cannon that I've just flipped over, but I didn't, partly to conserve ammunition, and partly because I think it could shoot at these guys here, but I don't think it actually has line of sight, because it's got to go, there's a slope here, and a slope here. Now you can fire across equal areas, and you can fire into areas units which are just up the slope. But I was unsure whether this is actually in line of sight or not, because you've got the undulation and upper slope. So I didn't. Also, it's on a church. So I think the woods and church, they block shot going through, but not into the hex. So I think it probably is in line of sight, but I reckon it'd be a waste of 1 round of ammunition anyway. These 2 units have actually spent the entire turn out of command. They're more than 3 hexes away from this unit here. I've now moved Rail over, so they're within 3 hexes of him for next turn. And when I drew the move into command chit, they can't move, they can't stack unless there's a leader with them. So they can't move through an enemy unit, for a friendly unit. So I think they're actually just stuck down there until I can get them in command, and then I can move them up to this ridge. The limitation of not being able to move through friendly units, if that's correct, that is particularly difficult. Okay, there was a fire combat. The French rolled very well here, and despite having only half their fire value, because only half the unit could see this hex, I think, again, they still managed to take out the British skirmishers here. Next thing. Both these 2 units combined their fire against this French skirmish unit here, but they rolled terribly, so nothing happened. There's nothing in the rules that says a unit with an assault marker on it, as far as I can tell, cannot fire, so I think they can fire, even if they have an assault marker on them. So now we've got to do this assault. The French could choose to retreat, because this is a skirmishing unit, but again, they have to retreat a certain distance, or through clear hexes, and they're going to run into their own units. And I don't know if they can stack. So I decided not to retreat. Also, I want to see. I don't think they are going to lose this combat anyway. essentially they have to roll to stand. If they roll to stand, they're just going to trade fire, which will benefit the French. If they fail to roll to stand, they'll disorder and there'll be a melee. And basically they have to take a morale check and roll over 21. But that roll is modified by this chart. And this is a ratio of the number of defending hexes to the number of target hexes. Well, this is 2 defending hexes because they're skirmishes in 2 hexes. And this is 1 attacking hex. So they're actually on 1 to 2, which means they're going to get +6 to this roll. So they've got to roll, and 26 is, I think the modifier should benefit them. I think you've got to roll, I have to check see if you've got to roll under or over on a morale check. Okay, I've checked the rules. I have to roll exceed 21, but I can add 6 to my die result. So the 10s, 6, well, they've passed that easily. That would go up to 60, well, 71 in theory, but the dice don't go that high. So they roll perfectly. So they now just exchange opportunity fire, which is very simple. They're going to roll 3 times 4. They're going to roll 12, fire 12 against a defense of 6. And they're going to return fire with a printed fire strength of, oops, they've already taken a couple of hits from previous fire, of 6. Against a defence of 14. So the likelihood is that the French will suffer no casualties and the English will suffer 1 more hit. It's turn 3. An update on what's happened so far. The artillery chit came out first. I didn't really want to fire any artillery on either side. Then the regroup action, which I don't think was used for much either. The English might have moved 1 unit up from the back, I forget. Then the British reinforcements came on, which on this turn was basically these cavalry units. There's a cavalry leader here, and there's 2 light cavalry units. And they moved from here up to here. I positioned this unit here because it's going to charge across and try and charge these skirmishers. It says in the rules that you can only charge when using an MU, so that means you cannot charge when using a regroup or a reinforcement chit, only when using a manoeuvre unit. The French did their move. They didn't do much. They moved this artillery piece up here and deployed it, so these guns are ready to fire. They shuffled some of their infantry a bit further forward, and they shuffled these skirmishers 1 hex forward because they're doing quite well. These skirmishers are generally being a pain in the backside. And this cavalry unit here moved round, ready to flank. These Jaegers here, I noticed, and reading some of the rules, although they've got rifles and they can shoot 2 hexes without any penalties, they actually don't have a fire value, and that's because basically they increase your odds of assassinating a leader when you shoot a unit, if they're stacked with another unit. So they're actually pretty useless here. I haven't bothered to move them yet because I didn't really work out what I want to do with them, since the French leaders are, nowhere further back anyway, so I'm not going to be assassinating them anytime soon. So it's the English turn. They just pulled their manoeuvre chit. The first thing I want to do is get these cavalry in position to charge. This cavalry unit here wants to charge this unit here. And basically what you do for cavalry charges is you just move them next to the unit they're going to charge. This unit can then attempt to form square if it wants to. And then you'll resolve combat in the melee phase, or they might roll to stand and shoot at the cavalry or whatever, we'll see. And this cavalry unit here, it wants to try and charge these cannons, and it's got 14 movement points, so it's going to go 1, I think it's an extra 1 or 2 to move up a hill, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it could be 8 for all I know, 9. And in fact, it might be wiser, I don't know if artillery is supposed to, whether those are the frontal hexes or those are all the front hexes. I think it wants to go through there to avoid going through the frontal hexes, because otherwise it will get, grape-shotted. Those cavalry are going to do that. They're charging up a slope, which might have a negative modifier, I don't know, but at least they're not going into the front of the cannon. So that's the British 2 charges. Okay, so charges and square. This unit here charged from, I think it was here. it charged 1, 2 hexes. Okay? Well, it was 1, 2, it was 3 hexes away. Why does that matter? Because the opposing player, at any point during the charge, can say, stop, I want to form square. And we'll say he said stop at 3 hexes out. Which means the French can roll, and if they roll an 11 to 62, they will succeed in forming square. So 10s, 55. So they form square, which means these skirmishes here flip over. I assume they compress into this hex here, and they form square.